of coverage in some mags.
Yeah, well, I think at that point Nick had connected with BMX Action Bike, and we sort of had a good rapport with Tim. You know, I'd met Tim through Track in the Woods, and so Tim was sort of starting to come around more and just hang out and take pictures of whatever. And that was right around the time we started going more to South Bank and sort of street, you know, banks and wall rides and all that stuff started coming into play. You know.
So what do you reckon that was, like 85 or something like that?
I think it must be 85, maybe 86. Yeah, because we were going to South Bank a lot, you know, and when you're at South Bank, you know, it was mostly skateboarders.
Yeah.
And you're just watching them doing fast plants and wall rides, and, you know, and you're like, okay, how can we do that on a bike? There's got to be a way to do that. So, and there was some, you know, some of the banks had a wall, you know, so you could like ride up the wall off the bank. It's like, okay, that's cool. And I think that was, yeah, I mean, that really was for me was kind of the kickstart into what is now street riding, you know?
Yeah.
But it was just riding architecture really in London. And it became street.
I was going to ask you about the street riding stuff a little bit later, yeah, but so you was going to South Bank in 85?
It might, you know, I think it was earlier than that even.
Wow. Yeah, because there was a BMX scene there, wasn't there? Like flatlandy sort of scene.
I remember Bob Haro came there once. I mean, it was kind of a thing, like especially skateboarders. When skateboarders came over, they would always go there. And I remember, I can't remember who it was. It might have been, I don't know if it was Soy or one of those guys did a rock and roll on one of the wall rides there. Like there was a bank to
the bank to.
Yeah, and he was rocking.
I think it was Cab, maybe. Might have been Steve Caballero. Yeah, I think he's got a picture.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. And just even wall riding that thing was awesome, you know. And so, like BMX and skateboarding, from my perspective, you know, was kind of like we shared a lot of the cultural, you know, and we borrowed a lot from skateboarding, if we're being honest, looking at the tricks and the riders and the way they dressed and everything like that, you know. And
what were the skaters like to you guys when you first started going?
Well, I was just going to touch on that. I think South Bank it wasn't too bad, but where we got a lot of friction was like going to a half pipe, you know, and living in London, there were a few half pipes. There was Ladbroke Grove and there was a couple other ones in South London, and we just would show up. And I remember like showing up with, you know, later on even with Craig and just getting so much grief. You know what I mean? And I think that a couple of times we realized that we would show up, hide our bikes, skateboard, and we weren't that good. I mean, we could drop in to a 10-foot, you know, and do maybe some, you know, rock and roll. That was about it. So they're like, oh, more skateboarders, whatever. And they were obviously, you know, much better. And then we try and bring the bike out. They're like, fuck off. What are you doing? You know, like we were like almost like conning our way into it, like trying to warm up to it. And sometimes we got away with it, but most of the time we didn't. But I remember there was a couple of really hairy situations where we showed up to a ramp and people were like really hostile, like throwing shit at us. And like, you know, it was pretty heavy duty, getting hit a few times here and there.
Can you remember where that was?
I don't remember what ramp that was. I think it was in South London somewhere. It wasn't Ladbroke Grove, but it was like that kind of vibe. You know, it was very heavy skateboard.
Not Crystal Palace, no?
I went to Crystal Palace too, and that was really hard to get on too. That was
I heard nightmares about it.
You couldn't, because I think that ramp was like raised up, so even getting onto it was hard. And yeah, I mean, I went to skateboard competitions and watched guys there, you know, skateboarding. But yeah, getting on that ramp was almost impossible.
Oh, I'm interested to know where the real bad one was. We went to one in Brighton once where, we got attacked. Basically, this was early '90s.
Yeah,
we've had that same sort of thing. But I remember from being a youngster, like we were locals at Chingford, and guys would come down at the weekend and just tell us, "No, get off the ramp."
Yeah,
we was like we put screws in this. Like.
Yeah, we actually built this ramp. Yeah. I know Paul. You know.
Yeah, it was funny, man. Funny shit.
Yeah. There's a lot of but it was pretty heavy rivalry, man. Like skateboarders did not like BMXers, even if you were good. They just later on it changed a little bit, but it was a rough relationship.
Yeah, skating had that they had that strong sort of like what you were saying. They had their vision was their actual activity. You know, it would come to be, hadn't it? It was what they wanted it to be. I think they not only were they young, but they were protective of it as well. So people showing up on a bike,
and quite rightfully so. Rightfully so. I mean, they built, well, not Chingford obviously, but they built a lot of the original ramps, and they were skate parks after all.
Yeah.
And we were come into
Yeah.
their turf, you know.
Yeah.
So I get it, but you know, you've got to get over it at some point.
Yeah, totally. You just keep going, didn't you? So can you remember when